Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening to me this morning. It is a news day bereft of any major headline, but there are a couple of fun. This from the Washington Post: executive resigns from hospital that offered early vaccine to employees at Trump's Chicago hotel. The chief operating officer at a small Chicago hotel resigned on Wednesday after reports that he had used coronavirus vaccines meant for low-income residents to vaccinate employees at his luxury wristwatch dealer, his regular steakhouse, and his condo building, which is former President Donald Trump's Chicago tower. So you can see how desperate the media is. This has got almost nothing to do with Trump, like nothing to do with Trump, but it's got Trump in the headline, which goes to tell you why media is having withdrawal syndromes from ratings across the board. Not this show. You folks are loyal, and in fact, we've added audience almost every day since President Trump left office, and the great rush went to his sainted place of reward. We've been filling in for many of those vacancies, but regular media is struggling. So they put Trump into every story. Meanwhile, that contrasts the executive resigns with the fact that Governor Cuomo has not resigned, even though Cuomo's family, according to the New York Times, is said to have received special access to virus tests. And in the Washington Post, Andrew Cuomo's family members were given special access to COVID testing, according to people familiar with the arrangement. And allegedly, Jeff Zucker and the rest of the CNN executive team were on Andrew Cuomo's treat him nice list. That's going to be quite an interesting scandal when they get to the bottom of who did Andrew Cuomo like and who did he not like. It really is. I'd also point you to, in the Washington Post on the landing page this morning, my new opinion piece, "The Long Duel Between the U.S. and China is Escalating." It builds off Josh Rogin's brand new book, Chaos Under Heaven. Josh is coming back today in the last segment, and I'm going to tape a long conversation with him for the podcast. But the key thing is the news of the morning. Well, imagine that I told Dwayne he had to go set up a remote in Chernobyl. Hey, Dwayne, you're going to Chernobyl. And he would look at me, what? I said, you get to go to Chernobyl. And, he's not allowed to talk. So the question would be, why? The look in his eyes would be, I'm going to Chernobyl. That happened yesterday at the White House, cut number 1.
The surge we're dealing with now started with the last administration, but it's our responsibility to deal with it humanely and to stop what's happening. And so this increase has been consequential. But the vice president's agreed, among the multiple other things that happened in the meeting, and I appreciate it, agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with those nations to accept the returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their borders. We're already talking with Mexico about that. She's already done that. We're going to be dealing with a full team now that we have to be able to deal with the problem here at home, but also to deal with it now in terms of in country. And I can think
President Harris is standing there saying, what? What did I get assigned? Chernobyl? The board? What was that? Normally she's asleep when Joe is rambling on like that. And all of a sudden she's in charge of the fiasco. That was Joe Biden's way. Remember from The Godfather? Keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. That was Joe Biden's payback for the busing comment. She got the border. That basically ends her political career. Speaking of ended political careers, Eric Greitens was my guest yesterday. If you listen to this part of the show, you may not have heard it. The former governor of Missouri declared he was running for U.S. Senate, and he came on, and I literally had about 3 minutes worth of questions to clear up to get to the issue set, and he turned it into a 30-minute filibuster. Cut number 12. Let's go through that one at a time. I read your comparison to Donald Trump, and the big difference there is that Donald Trump was being pursued by the Steele dossier and by Democrats. You're being pursued by Republicans. The Missouri legislature was going to impeach you. And let me finish, Eric. And I read that report, all 24 pages, and most of it is based on witness testimony, including that of the woman with whom you had an affair at your house. And you took a photograph of her. You never denied that. I don't know how anyone.
Actually, Hugh, let me stop you right there, because that's absolutely 100% false. And I'm not going to allow you or anyone, Hugh, to repeat those leftist lies. That is 100% false, Hugh. And you are repeating the exact same talking points from the left that got that FBI.
That's not in the left. That is in the GOP-controlled Missouri legislature.
Actually,
and
Hugh, I'm sorry.
The special investigative
that entire dossier was proven false. The Missouri Ethics Commission followed up on that report, Hugh, and they said there was no evidence of any wrongdoing.
No, there are 4 witnesses. Let's talk about that. That's the key thing. No, they didn't. No, there are 3 different investigations with Eric Greitens. I should have just assumed he would not conflate 3 investigations. There was an investigation by the St. Louis District Attorney, who is a hard left Democrat incompetent. There was an investigation by the Missouri Ethics Committee into campaign funding, financing, and list keeping, and that's separate from the district attorney. And then there was the investigation of the Missouri legislature into Eric Greitens' affair, and 4 witnesses. Greitens didn't participate in it. I was focused on the last one. He kept conflating it with the first 2 because he didn't want to talk about it. But when rule of thumb, when you go on someone's show and they ask you an uncomfortable question, answer it. Just answer it. Don't talk over them. Just answer it. We've had some memorable collisions over 20 years and 3/4 on this show. It occurs only infrequently. I doubt once every 3 or 4 years an interview will go sideways. Ron Johnson's interview went sideways recently. Andrew Sullivan's is the most famous interview that went sideways. And it's usually because the person on the other end is involved in a drama that we're not seeing. They have something going on in their head that we don't know about. And my basic question was this, cut number 15. Yeah. When you run for office, they're going to read into the record, witness 1, 2, 3, and 4 in front of the Missouri legislature accusing you of hap rape, of taking, they're going to do that. How are you going to survive that? How are you not going to be Todd Aiken?
Well, because, look, we have the people of Missouri with us. The people of Missouri know these facts, Hugh. The people of Missouri know what happened. They saw this campaign orchestrated by the establishment and the left. They saw the lies that came. They've seen how the lies have been exposed. All of this is known to the people of Missouri, and it's why the grassroots are with us. It's why the people of Missouri are with us. And it's why not only will win
because the woman involved was lying. Because those witnesses were lying. I'm not worried about it. See how easy that is? He doesn't want to say that. So instead we get a long discourse. And Eric is coming back next week, and we'll talk about it again. But this time, I think he'll figure it out. Don't try and filibuster a lawyer. This is not the rollover show. It's the Hugh Hewitt show. In any event, I do have to point out that a couple of nuts from the left on Twitter, Sam Stein at Politico, which has gone off the left edge, for example, accused me of inventing a term, half rape. In fact, that is the description used by the witnesses, one of the 4 witnesses, half rape. And it's on tape, and it's in the 24-page dossier. Foolish me. I assume people read dossiers when they were referenced, and they're easily available, and I had tweeted out the link to it. No, Media Matters, and Emo mans the Hugh Hewitt desk over at Media Matters. Emo is trapped there. He's been trapped there, or she's been trapped there. I'm not sure. If Emo is a man or a woman, no one ever tells me. It's one of those funny names. It could go either way, like Pat. So Emo is over there and decides to hit me for using the term half rape, as did Sam Stein. Now, Emo works at Media Matters, so I don't really care, but I even helped them out. Read the report. But Sam Stein, leading ace reporter for Politico, can't be bothered, gets it confused. Of course, I correct him. He doesn't say a word. But the term half rape is not my term. It's a quote from the witness report from the special committee of the Missouri State Legislature. More on Eric Greitens and his not so good, very bad, awful day on the Hugh Hewitt show. Haven't had a reaction to that on Twitter in a long, long time. Should have been a pretty boring interview. You know, hello, welcome. We're going to have a Missouri Senate race on these issues. Eric Greitens made it not so. I give him credit, though. He's coming back next Thursday. And we'll continue the conversation as we will after the break. Go nowhere, America. You're listening to The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What is the reality for you and your deputies when it comes to the last 58 days in America? Have things changed for you when it comes to illegal migration in your county, Sheriff?
Oh, absolutely. And it's been a disastrous change. It is not a change that we welcomed or are enjoying, that's for sure. You know, immediately overnight, we started having, the last 2 months we've had 40-plus pursuits where they end in a bailout, which means that they run from us, they stop, everybody bails out of the vehicle into the desert. Typically, they'll leave somebody behind. Like we had one where 12 people bailed out of the car and they left a 16-year-old Guatemalan girl behind because they know that we're going to have to deal with this unaccompanied minor while all of them go free into this country. Last Wednesday alone, we had 49 apprehensions in one day. It's not uncommon for us to go out and have 20 apprehensions. And mind you, I'm 60 miles off the border. That's how far they're infiltrating into our country. Camouflage clothes. They don't want to be caught. And here's what I know I'm kind of running on, and I'll give you a second.
No. We need to know. Our listeners, our viewers need to know. So you tell us what's changed.
You know, and what I keep telling people, this isn't about immigration anymore. This is about human trafficking and drug trafficking into this country. And if you care about human beings, it shouldn't matter what party you are. If you care about protecting those people, then you should absolutely care about border security, because the cartel is using these people to gain money. They're raping the women. They're using the children as pawns, which is clear as day right now, and they extort the men.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
I just got an email about someone who says they have to take mandated racial diversity seminar training or whatever it is. And all I have to say is that there is a piece of art, and I don't use that word lightly, that is so perfect, so funny, so politically incorrect, that hits this perfectly. It's from the legendary show The Office. Now, The Office started as an unbelievably politically incorrect show, and then it got into this kind of like quasi-woke thing later on. But the episode Diversity Day with Steve Carell, it's so politically incorrect, especially in today's time. I'm just going to tell you something right now. If I dared repeat some of the lines here, it wouldn't even be an advertiser boycott. I'd be an advertiser invasion. One of my favorite lines is Steve Carell looks into actually, this might be the pilot episode. You see, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but I am an expert in the central canon of the first season of The Office, because it all went downhill from there. I watched it later. The first season of The Office is so well written, as if they don't care about, they just said, we are going to swing for the fences, bottom of the ninth, we want this show to catch on, that they just took huge risks. Steve Carell famously said, as Abraham Lincoln said, if you are a racist, I will attack you from the north. I highly encourage you to check it out, because we need to laugh about this stuff a little bit, because people are emailing me, Charlie, what do I do about this diversity seminar? If you think you have it bad, check out Michael Scott, who had to take the diversity class seminar.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
It is not normal, and my best argument is my antipathy to the veil that many Muslim women wear. It dehumanizes them. So why doesn't this mask dehumanize you? There used to be a
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Time for the business story of the day, brought to you by Birch Gold. You can buy your gold at hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, to 474747. They will ship it to you direct, as I do when I buy gold. I buy it from Birch Gold. Or if you just wish to roll over a portion of your IRA or 401k and diversify your holdings, you do that at hughgold.com as well. Birch Gold has 10,000 plus customers. So many 5-star ratings, so many good reviews, because they are very good at buying the amount of gold you buy, transferring into a vault, putting your name on it, and keeping it safe. This morning, gold is trading at $1,730 an ounce, down just a tick. It's a great entry point. I've been saying that. It's as the market figures out what's going on before the inflation hits, gold is down at a nice entry point. I encourage you, if you're going to buy gold, do it from Birch Gold so you do not get caught up with one of the losers who run the scams out there. Birch Gold is very reputable. That is who I buy my gold from. Just go to hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, to 474747. The business story of the day is that Prince Harry got a new job. That's actually the business story of the day. Prince Harry got a new job. I read from CNN Business. Prince Harry has found a new gig. The Duke of Sussex joins a startup called Better Up as Chief Impact Officer, which provides mental health services and coaching to clients online. The job announcement came weeks after he and Meghan Markle's bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey. First Move's Julia Chatterley, that's a CNN person, spoke to CEO Alexei Robichaud about Harry's role at Better Up and the company's mission. CNN's parent company, Warner Media, is a client of Better Up. Explain the mission mean. I read it as providing a gym for mental health. What does that mean? Robichaud. The easiest way is to think about Better Up is that we're taking what was traditionally thought of as a competitive coaching and putting that into the pockets of workers and professionals worldwide. We are a professional mobile platform that connects individuals with one-way dedicated coaching so that they can do related to leadership, sleep, nutrition, and parenting. Dwayne has often combined sleep and leadership. Now, I'm imagining I want Prince Harry, if I join up with Better Up. Hello, who's this? Hugh Hewitt, radio host. What can I do for you? Well, you're better. I'd like some coaching. Get off the radio. I've heard you. You're no damn good. Get off. Leave. Simply stop it. Put it away. No, it's my job. I've been doing it for 30 years. No, sorry, buddy. Can't do it for you. Coach you right off there. Leave. I want Prince Harry. But if Prince Harry is going to be like most royals, it's not going to be worth a damn thing. I mean, really, do you want life coaching from Prince Harry? He married Meghan Markle. Do you want life coaching from Prince Harry? He's out of his family.
That is the advice from every other life coach in the world practicing. Yeah. Whatever your problem is, don't marry Meghan Markle.
There you go. And I asked Dwayne if he would pretend to be Harry. He said no.
Oh, I'll play your game, you rogue.
Yeah, that's it. He's going to be like that.
You know what happens if I do that, right?
Yeah, I know.
I do a bad accent, and the story goes out the window.
Give it a try. Just say, go shooting.
No.
That's what he's going to recommend.
No.
I recommend you bag a couple of deer. Haven't you watched The Crown? I think you ought to go up to Balmoral and bag a couple of deer or something like that.
The second I try that, you are laughing on the floor, and you will drop
just say, put on a kilt.
No.
I'm telling you, he'd all say, have you got a good kilt? Maybe you need a new good kilt, man. You need a man's
Wouldn't be prudent, not at this juncture.
Why don't you get a sword? You need a new sword. Prince Harry is a life coach. It is the greatest damn thing in the world. Prince Harry is a life coach. I think Eric Greitens is going to call Prince Harry for some life coach advice. We'll come back with more of the Eric Greitens interview after this. But I remind you, markets yesterday were not terrific. The Dow was off 3 points. The S&P was down 21, and the NASDAQ fell 2%, 285 points. And we don't know what will happen today. Overseas, it's a lackluster day with minor drops in England, Germany, and France as the world just kind of spins in place. The Joe Biden presidency, we're all going to be like cicadas and drop to the ground for 17 years. Don't go anywhere, America. It is the Thursday edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Prince Harry calling.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
It is not normal, and my best argument is my antipathy to the veil that many Muslim women wear. It dehumanizes them. So why doesn't this mask dehumanize you? There used to be a saying about someone who did something shameful. This guy can't show his face around town anymore. Show your face. That's you. It may be fair, it may be unfair. That is you. You're hiding your face for a year for no good reason? I see these ads for masks. Do you know, we all fantasize, and I'm not speaking about the erotic, I'm speaking about fantasizing other things. So we all fantasize something that would just change a lot. I have one. Here's a fantasy. That there were as many ads telling people not to wear masks outside as there were telling them to wear it outside. But no, I'll bet you no billboard company would put it up. Right? I mean, what if we just quoted from scientific literature, masks outdoors are generally useless?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Folks, I'm talking to Anne McElhenney and Phelim McAleer. You have a film that you are on the verge of making. It's called My Son Hunter, and it's about Hunter Biden.
When you think about it, this should be the opening skit on every Saturday Night Live.
I was just going to say, precisely, yes.
I mean, and you know, I don't like making fun of alcoholics being Irish, you know, but the politics is so funny. I mean, this guy, as Anne said, you know, thrown out of the Navy, alcoholic, drug addict,
gets a stripper pregnant.
Who hasn't? He goes to rehab, meets a homeless woman on the way into rehab called Bicycles, because she's always got a bicycle, goes off and lives with her for 3 months. This is by his own admission. But the joke, the real joke here is, who did Burisma? They did an international executive search, and who did they decide was the best person for their
on
board?
the planet Earth, after a deep dive, you know, in really checking out all the people available and doing all background checks. This is the one guy you want on your energy board.
He's a crack addict. He's filmed himself in pornographic acts and put it on the web. Jimmy Carter had a brother named Billy who was constantly getting Jimmy Carter in trouble. I remember this as a kid and thinking how embarrassing it would be to have somebody close to you in the family who's saying things and doing things. This is that times a billion. He's compromising. Imagine if Billy Carter had been talking to the Soviets. Imagine if Billy Carter had been doing back deals with the Soviets.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
I'm a teacher in an elementary school, and a lot of our professional development is on racism because our school is very diverse in that population. And one of the professional development we had was on diverse books and the lack of diverse books. Mm-hmm. So basically the statistics they gave us was that this is from 2018, that 50% of all children's books that are published are based on characters who are white. So 50% white. 27% are animals or other, things besides people. 10% is based on blacks, 7% on Asian Pacific or Asian people, 5% on Latinos, and then 1% on American Indians. And how this is an example of systemic racism, and it's very hard to find diverse books.
My first thought, Mary, is who sat around and added them all up like that? I mean, that's just amazing to me. Right? That's stunning to me. The good book is a good book. A good character is a good character. Huckleberry Finn had all sorts of references and N-words in it, but it was about a bondage between a black man and a young white boy. And it was a wonderful story. How that's become racist is beyond me. Mary, the other point I want to make is presumably all of this is to make sure the kids have good self-esteem. As I've said on my program, going back over decades, black kids have higher self-esteem than white kids. Black girls have higher self-esteem than white girls. Black boys have way higher self-esteem than Asian boys and Asian girls. So if this is all about making sure that black boys and
It's so beautiful today. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening to me this morning, America. A special welcome to all the new affiliates of the past month. We'll try and fill your news gap every single morning. I also, however, every few months bring a cause to your attention that I deeply believe in and the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I support this month. And I will wrap it up next week. Food for the poor, involved in a desperate struggle to save lives in Honduras, where COVID crippled the industry, then rains, torrential rains destroyed the infrastructure. So there was no relief to begin with, and now there's no means to deliver the relief that Food for the Poor stepped forward with. They are repairing the bridges. They have got the system up and running. They can save lives. They do it with your help. My friend Angel Aloma has been running Food for the Poor for many, many years, one of the most dedicated, selfless people on the planet. Angel joined me to talk about why it's so urgent that you give today, and you can do so over at hughhewitt.com at the red banner at the very top of my website, or you can call 855-359-4673, but nobody tells it like Angel.
Every one of those little children who are starving have grandparents who think they're the most beautiful children and the most intelligent children in the world. We have to do something about this situation. We have to do it not tomorrow, not 2 days later, because life will get in the way and we'll forget. We have to do it now.
No, I really do encourage you, whether it's $50, $100, it's $1,000 Thursday. And so if some of you have been intending to wait for that, I always put it towards the end when I'd love to make a huge difference in the campaign. If you can afford $1,000, please step up. If you can do 5 figures, we have one gift that amount this time. I'd love a second gift that amount. But whether you can only afford $10, whatever it is, over at hughhewitt.com. Thank you on behalf of the children in Honduras. When I go back to my Eric Greitens interview yesterday, it played out over social media and in the Kansas City Star and in media across the United States, inside the Beltway. Was I too hard? Was I not hard enough? It's just a normal Hugh Hewitt interview. I prepare for interviews. I read everything that I can. And Mr. Greitens was not prepared for that. He'd gotten softballs from some of his friends, and they hadn't really pushed back on the. He was a scandal-plagued governor, and he's making a comeback, but you got to talk about the scandals. And I brought up the fact that a bunch of his SEAL team buddies do not much care for him because he never served in a SEAL platoon, and a bunch of other reasons. I brought that up with him. Cut number 16. I want to turn to the second group that's come after you, which is 16 SEALs made a video that I watched. Have you seen this video that is swift boating you?
Hugh, I think you might be referring to a video that was made in the past, and I will let you know, sir, that in fact those guys have come out just recently, yes, and they said that there was discredited.
That's all you need to do. It's like he's got the worst media coaching anywhere. Keep playing.
There was a candidate in 16 who paid somebody to attack me, and those guys have come out and they've apologized. We just released last night, Hugh, Ryan Zinke, Former Navy SEALs, my commander.
I saw that. 16 SEALs who stood by that. It's just like the John Kerry and the Swift boat thing. So you ought to be prepared to say 4 of the men who participated in that video, and their names are Joe Bag of Donuts, Joe Bag of Donuts, Joe Bag of Donuts, and Joe Bag of Donuts, have said they regret their participation in the video. Then it would have been over. Keep going.
Zinke, former Navy SEALs, my commander.
I saw that.
Who endorsed
and so he brings up an unrelated. I know Ryan Zinke. I saw his endorsement. I was prepared to talk about it, but that's not responsive. This is my plea to people out there who want to be interviewed. Answer the freaking questions. It just gets over in about 5 seconds when you answer the questions. Keep going.
Rob O'Neill, the man who shot Osama bin Laden.
Saw that. I know Rob O'Neill. I've had lunch with Rob O'Neill. I get along with Rob O'Neill. It's got nothing to do with the people who made the video. Skip down the key thing in the video that will play again and again and again is that he had an unusual career in the SEALs because he never deployed with a SEAL team. Now, every SEAL I know, and I know a lot of them, I got one in my family. I've got Rourke Denver's been on this show a number of times. He's retired. Brian, he knows who. I know a lot of SEALs, know a lot of them. And they all say the same thing. It's about the platoons. So this exchange happened, cut number 17. But I want to know, did you ever deploy with a SEAL platoon, which is one of the charges they say you never deployed with a SEAL platoon? Did you?
Hugh, the fact is, again, I did 4 deployments in the global war on terrorism, and I'll walk you through all of them.
I know them all. I admire your service. I'm a civilian. I just want to know if you deployed with a SEAL platoon.
I deployed as a Navy SEAL 4 times, Hugh,
but with a SEAL platoon.
Commander of an Al-Qaeda targeting cell.
I know that was the Marine Corps, right, in Fallujah.
Of Naval Special Warfare Development Group, who is doing extraordinary work.
I understand it, but in their allegation, Eric, it's an easy question. I'm not a hostile witness. I'm not a hostile investigator. I'm just doing, I know what you're going to get hit on. And thus far, you're not overwhelming me with your response, which should be, I deployed or I didn't deploy with a SEAL platoon. It shouldn't be a diversion.
I'll walk you through all 4.
I know Horn of Africa. I know Djibouti. I know Iraq. I know Afghanistan. I know it all. In Thailand.
A Mark V Special Operations Craft Detachment is the commander of a Joint Special Operations Task Unit, is commander of an Al-Qaeda targeting cell. In Afghanistan is
I know that.
Special Warfare Development Group. So those were the 4 deployments, and I'm proud of every day.
I think you should be, especially a civilian like me, but I know the charge that was made. So hear me out, Eric. They charged that you...
Yeah.
They charged in the video you never deployed with the SEAL platoon, that you served far less time than the average SEAL. Is it just true or false?
Hugh, what you're doing is stepping into, and I'm not going to allow you to do this, to repeat the talking points of people who attack.
Right there. This is why I got this interview generated a lot of love from mainstream media, because they don't know how to do interviews, and they don't give themselves, they do hit and run interviews as opposed to sit down and talk to someone for 30-minute interviews. All it requires is persistence. But to people being interviewed, hang a lantern on your problem. Chris Matthews put that in his famous book, Hardball, and I have repeated it ever since to everyone who's there. Hang a lantern on your problem. If you've got a SEAL, group of SEALs who don't like your service record, hang a lantern on it, prepare an answer, and be responsive. Now, the biggest problem that Eric Greitens has is a 24-page report by the Republican-controlled legislature, which, when all different scandals about his extramarital affair, at best, some people say it was a hostage-taking, some people say it was rape, some people say, and I quoted them in the report, half rape, which meant, well, you just have to read the whole report. I'm not going to summarize 24 pages for you. Not my term. It's not actually a legal term at all. There is no such thing. But you got to quote a witness. You got to quote a witness accurately. We talk about the report here, cut number 18. Let's slow down. There's a 24-page report by the Missouri General Legislature that has... Don't talk over me for a second. I know you're saying that. I don't believe it has been discredited, but I want to know...
Have you read the Missouri Ethics Commission report? Have you?
Yes, I did. I read everything. I've read everything. All I know is the most damning stuff. No, I won't read John Solomon. The most damning stuff That's not original reporting. I read original documents. I'm a lawyer. John isn't.
These were original documents in the reporting. You can look at all of the original documents. You can look at
Eric, you're diverting from the target. The target is the 24-page report. That's what I want to talk about.
The target of the facts. If you want to talk about something that's been discredited, sir, that's
the
not
Missouri legislature's report has not been discredited. It was going to be the basis of your impeachment.
Hugh, there was a 20-month investigation of all of those allegations. 8,500 documents, Hugh.
In that report, look, Eric,
Hugh,
I'm getting to a question. In that report, they interview under oath the woman with whom you had an affair. And they interview two of her friends and her former husband. Those are witnesses 1, 2, 3, and 4. Were they lying under oath?
Hugh, yes, it's very clear. Under oath, what they said was that they were remembering these things through a dream. What they also don't talk about in that report was the $120,000 cash bribe. You know, if you read the report, you know that cash bribe wasn't covered. If you read the report, sir.
It did not mention it. Did not mention it at all. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. And if you read the report, sir, you'll also know that it didn't say that under oath they said they might be remembering these false accusations.
It did not say that. What it did say is that you're guilty of half rape. And I'm afraid that document will show up in an ad. That's what I'm just talking about, the ad that's coming that says Eric Greitens is guilty of half rape.
The same thing that the Lincoln Project did to President Trump. It's the same thing they did in the Russia-Trump collusion.
Yeah, that as a Trump voter, I voted for Trump twice. I don't appreciate that because there's nothing to do with the Steele dossier and your problems. There's nothing to do with Donald Trump's persecution and your resignation.
What is the case, Hugh, is that you recognize, because you've seen it and you've commented on it, you've done the analysis, you've seen the way the left will push. And in this case, they use the FBI, will push a false narrative and they will harass and attack the president. The only difference in my case is that the former FBI agent who was hired by the George Soros-funded prosecutor has actually been charged with 7 felonies.
Do you know what he did? He conflated 3 investigations and the most damning one, which is the state legislative investigation. Whenever I brought it up, because the St. Louis prosecutor is discredited. She's a political hack and a terrible prosecutor. And I read her stuff. It's been dismissed. And that's where the FBI guy, and that's where all the charges are brought. And as for the MEC, Missouri Ethics Commission, it's one of those campaign finance violations thing that ended up finding his campaign $187,000 for use by his campaign of his 501c3's mailing list. That doesn't bother me either. That's just the charnel of a campaign. The Missouri legislative committees, that was going to lead to his impeachment, which is he resigned. He wants to conflate all of the 3 investigations together, and it's not particularly persuasive. I don't think it's persuasive at all. Here he says one thing that's important, that he did not take the photograph of the woman that he bound up on gymnastic rings. He taped her and they had some sort of encounter. Cut number 13. The GOP-controlled legislature, so the audience understands, impaneled a special committee, 7 members bipartisan. They issued a 24-page report. You would not cooperate with it. You wouldn't supply documents. And it found 4 witnesses who accused you of the consent. You said consensual, but you did not participate, right? And you did not submit documents.
Let's get the facts straight. 8,500 documents.
All right, stop.
23
Those are not the facts related. He didn't give 8,500 documents to the state legislature. He just didn't. Honestly, it's going to be tough for him. But then again, reporters have to be ready to follow up. I follow up with ReliefFactor.com. It's Thursday. Some of you have long weekends like Dwayne. Dwayne works Wednesdays, but he came in today because I asked him to. And we have ReliefFactor.com for those of you who take long weekends this weekend and are going to be out on the highways and byways. It's springtime in some places. You're all having a great time. Take your ReliefFactor.com. Karen Kirkerman, Resveratrol Omega. Stone cold coffee. Absolutely stone cold. But it goes down. You can take those 4 pills every morning like I do. I listen during the day, and Prager talks about taking them, and I believe Dennis does, and other people refer to them but I just do it on the air, and you can watch me if you're watching on YouTube. And I got a great YouTube channel. You can watch that whole Eric Greitens thing over at YouTube yesterday. But mostly you get to watch me take my relieffactor.com every day. Okay, the Israelis had an election, and it's the same as before, and it will be the same again, and they'll have another election. Michael Oren will explain why we are doing it again next.
This is Jerry Boyer of Town Hall Finance for townhall.com. The Congressional Budget Office just released its new debt figures. The national debt this year will top 102% of GDP. This has only happened twice before, both during World War II. This number does not count the proposed $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, nor does it count the money which was borrowed from Social Security, since that's considered intergovernmental debt. Debt levels this high break the intergenerational covenant that we have with our children and grandchildren. FDR borrowed to defeat the Nazis and Imperial Japan. Money well spent. Reagan borrowed to defeat the Soviet Union. That was also money well spent. These great projects made the world better for future generations. But our political class is not buying victories against international threats. They are buying political victories for incumbents. This is nothing more than fiscal abuse, and our kids will pay the price. It needs to stop, now. I'm Jerry Boyer.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This isn't, as some have portrayed it, as some kind of spontaneous, random, organic response to Joe Biden being president. This is being institutionally organized for the profit of the cartels, correct?
Absolutely. And the cartels understand what our politics and our policies are better than we do as Americans. And they knew where Joe Biden was leaning in his administration, and they were more than willing and more than ready to help accommodate those people to come across this country. Look, they don't just let people come across. On the other side, the cartel is regulated. They make these people pay. They give them children to, hey, here, take this kid across with you. They're less likely to stop you. Or
so this is something that I want everybody to understand. I heard this from my friend, former Commissioner for Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan. They are using children from the northern counties in Mexico as props so that groups of adults coming across can say, we are a family unit, so the feds have to treat them differently. Are you confirming that, Sheriff Lamb?
Yes, 100%. And out in Collin County, Texas, one of my other fellow sheriffs out there, they do interdiction on the highways out.
Welcome back, America. According to the Jerusalem Post, the most likely outcome is Netanyahu plus the right plus a party called a boss equals 64, led by a boss. 64 people. I don't see how that happens. I'm joined by Dr. Michael Oren, who actually is in Israel, just got done voting. He's been studying the results. Looks like a fifth round of elections to me, Dr. Michael Oren. What do you say?
So what did I tell you the last couple of weeks? Not to be self-congratulating here, but the polls were all showing that Bibi was going to lose. And I was talking to experts here. They're all giving me the math how Bibi's going to lose. And I kept on saying to them, no, I think either Bibi's going to win or we're going to go to a fifth round. And last week when I spoke to you, I said that Bibi, essentially like some of our enemies, that in order to win, they have only not to lose.
Correct.
Meaning that if he doesn't lose, then he stays prime minister. We go to a fifth round. And, you know, he's basically prime minister for another half a year at least, at very least. So that appears to be the situation today. What we have is this total absurdity view where you have a Netanyahu-led coalition, which includes the most right-wing party in Israel's existence. It was illegal in the past. It's basically racist and fascist. And the only way this government can come into being is with the support of Mansour Abbas, who heads a party called RAM. It's a breakaway party from the United Arab List, which is mostly Arab nationalists, secularists, and communists. RAM is an Islamic extremist party. It is the barely legal, non-violent wing in Israel of Hamas. And
so my question on that, tell me about RAM.
And an Islamist party.
Could RAM get a portfolio that was limited to improvements in the Arab sectors of Israel?
It could, but it also means it sits around the cabinet table. The cabinet meets every Sunday, and they discuss issues which can be classified.
Well, there are places to have an inner cabinet for security measures. I just don't, honestly, a fifth round of elections, I'm exhausted. Doesn't everybody just, do they not just say, okay, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but for 5 years, you're going to run Nazareth, which is a heavily Arab part of the state of Israel, and they say to the right-wingers, you can't have the fascist end, but the rest of you get the settlements. I mean, can't they do some kind of deal like that?
Well, what's the big change, if you ask me, the big event of the 2021 elections is the fact that Israeli Arabs are now part of the electoral system. The 21% of the population, before they had this United Arab List, and believe me, I would listen to them for hours and hours talk about the occupation, and the Nakba of 1948, and fascism, racism. They did nothing for the community, zero. Arab Israelis, like any Israelis, want education, they want security, they want a future for their kids. And RAM is the first party to come along and say, all right, we're not working for Mahmoud Abbas here. We're not working for us. We're working for our own constituents. And that is going to change all the calculus about the future of Israel's politics from now on.
And it would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be a good thing if they were included in a government with a portfolio that was specifically designed for Arab-Israeli affairs?
It'd be a great thing. You ask me, it's terrific.
And so is it going to happen? Because that's a 64-vote coalition, according to the Jerusalem Post.
I don't know if it's 64. It could be 61, at the most 62. But because they're taking into account that there may be some defectors for some other parties. You can't bank on that. Possible, but say 61. And I think that if you bring RAM in and you make them part of Israel, you make them invested in Israel, but every other Arab party is going to try to do the same thing. And you've seen now Netanyahu has actually campaigned in the Arab sector. This is the guy who back in 2013 was talking about the Arabs running to the polls. 2015, warning that Arabs were voting in droves. Now he's actually courting the Arab vote. Everyone's courting the Arab vote.
Indeed, it seemed to me like the Irish vote in the long 19th century, when Irish parties held the balance of power often in the British Parliament. Sometimes they wouldn't take their seats, and that was stupid, but when they took their seats, they got concessions for the Irish people.
Listen, in Jerusalem, for example, the Arab population in Jerusalem doesn't participate in the elections. Now imagine if tomorrow the Arabs of Jerusalem participated in the elections, you could conceivably have an Arab mayor in Jerusalem.
Interesting.
It's a sea change for this area. It's not without its challenges, but overall, I think it's good for the state of Israel. I think it's good for the Arabs.
So do you think, the key question before we run out of time, are we going to avoid a fifth round in your humble opinion?
You can't rule it out.
Huh.
My gut feeling tells me no, but it's going to be a very unwieldy government. It's going to be a government which on one hand is going to include, say, for example, Islamic extremists, but on the other hand, it'll make a government in which Benjamin Netanyahu will be the most left-wing person in the government. Now, no prime minister wants that. They want to be the center. They want coalition partners to the right and the left of them. That means everything Bibi tries to do in terms of legislation will be subject to pressure/extortion on issues like.
And the Supreme Court is in big trouble, right? The Supreme Court is in major trouble if this government comes in.
I'm very disturbed by it because I think the judicial review is one of the pillars of any democracy, including this democracy. Yes, it's in trouble, but not just that. It's LGBT rights. it's many other rights here that will be under great duress.
Well, we will follow. The counting's not done. Can the counting still change it, Michael? 10 seconds.
Yes, there's 400,000 outstanding ballots. That's a lot.
All right, we'll check in next week. Don't go anywhere, America. A special Hillsdale Dialogue on Thursday. We're catching up. Don't go anywhere. Hillsdale Dialogue next hour on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
The world shaped by reading the Washington Post, watching CNN, reading the New York Times, is not only a world of different opinion, it is a world of different apprehension of reality. They admit that. It's one of the few things left and right agree with. We do not even agree on reality. It's very tough to dialogue with people. They would admit this. How do you dialogue with people who have a different reality? One of us lives in a fantasy land, either conservatives or leftists. That is one of the few things they can agree on. Right? Right. 1-8-PRAGER-776. There is a piece. I want to get this. I actually contributed to her FundMe page. Gateway Pundit and other places, but the left won't report this, I bet. I couldn't find one left-wing source. If this article is accurate, that's why you didn't send it to me. However, so I checked. It's widely reported, and there are names, and it's a doctor. That's the reason I give it credibility. I want to say at the outset, if what I'm about to read you is not accurate, I am at fault for reporting it, and all the places that reported it, including a place you respect, Gateway Pundit. But they give the school name, they give the doctor's name. I mean, that's a lot.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I mean, we know that the Media Research Center did polling and found out among people who voted for Joe Biden, something like 30% didn't know the Hunter Biden story. And those that heard about the Hunter Biden story said up to 17% of them would not have voted for Joe Biden if they had known. This, we know for sure. This isn't any kind of conspiracy theory. We know that journalists interfered with this election in a way that journalists have never interfered with an election in the United States before, by suppressing very pertinent information. And for your listeners and your viewers, what is that pertinent information? And, it's almost like a joke, actually, Eric. And I think this film, actually, funny enough, will be funny and awfully sad and tragic and has a terrible punch in it. But here's some of the details. Here's a guy with a drug problem. And, we're Irish. We exported alcoholism around the world. We're quite sympathetic to people with addiction issues. But here's a guy with a very serious addiction issue. He goes to the Navy, he gets a special dispensation to go to the Navy as an older guy. First day he's there, he's thrown out because he got cocaine in his system. And his story, his excuse for that, is so ludicrous, it's worth telling. He says that he stopped off at a bar because he wanted a glass of water. He decided he needed a cigarette, went outside, didn't have a cigarette, and just randomly, because you know how this is, 2 South African guys offered him a cigarette laced with cocaine. Because you probably know, you live in New York, you see, Eric, you'd know how much these cocaine dealers are just handing out that cocaine for free to everyone.
Yeah, they hand it out for free. That's how I got addicted.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
I just get tired of people blaming racism for any time there's statistical differences along race and ethnicity. And you brought up the case in point about the NBA and NFL. We as Black people were overly represented in these areas, and yet we never hear boo that that's racist. But everywhere else, we scream racism, and I just wish that we would just go a little bit deeper in the analysis whenever we see these things. What is it in the culture? Is it in the way that we're bringing up our children in society that's promoting people to go into certain areas and occupations like that? That I feel would be much more useful and helpful rather than just saying, "Oh, racial inequity or racism." I'm saying this as a Black woman. I attended Ivy League schools, and I always felt in the back of my mind, "Are you judging me because you think I'm here and I didn't deserve it?" Whenever we do that and we eliminate merit-based systems, it always makes those of us who are trying to work hard feel like people are judging us as if we didn't work hard to get here.
Well, Bonnie,
thank you, Larry.
Bonnie, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. I went to an Ivy League school, too. My girlfriend was a dancer. She tried out to be a cheerleader, and she didn't make it. And I went to a game, I think one game, and all the cheerleaders were Black, even though virtually all the players were white. Merit-based, these white girls, she told me, just couldn't do the steps they were doing. But nobody complained. Nobody said we ought to have a race-based determination for cheerleaders. We have more white ones.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Listen, I fight hard for what I believe in every day, but I also try to understand where somebody who disagrees with my ideology or my politics, where they're coming from. And so in a way, maybe you do the same thing, and it kind of keeps us sort of out of the hot seat where we're not just trying to lob, hand grenades to the other side, but we're trying to have a reasonable dialogue.
Yeah, I don't want any vitriol in my life. I work very hard to avoid it. One of the things I talk about my dog a lot, Jasper. I've actually utilized my love for dogs to form relationships with people that I might disagree with politically. And that's been very gratifying, actually. I have a rule, no politics at the dog park. And also I've found the other thing is that if you ask questions, right, I ask a lot of questions. I'm curious. I love learning. I know you do too. This is why you do this job. You love meeting people and learning the issues. And I've also started listening to more podcasts. I'm thrilled that you're going to be doing a podcast. I will subscribe. I will give you 5 stars.
Thank you.
And in the book, I list several podcasts for young people to keep learning. So that they can grow. I mean, there's a lot of ambition and talent and educated people in America. They want to succeed, but they got to work a little harder to get it. You got to work in a competitive world. And you have to find a way to be different from your competitors.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Morning Glory, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. If you're a regular listener, you're saying, wait, it's not Friday. That music means the Hillsdale Dialogue. And it does. It's a special edition of the Hillsdale Dialogue, not the last radio hour of the week. Because we have to pick up the pace. We have to catch up to where we ought to be in the Hillsdale Readers. So I asked Dr. Oren if he couldn't spare an extra hour this week early to get back on track. And he said yes. And he brought along Professor D.G. Hart, who's been teaching history at Hillsdale for a decade. Before that, he taught at Wheaton College and Westminster Seminary, so you know he's one of us. Dr. Hart, welcome. It's great to have you here. I hope Larry didn't trick you into this. This is not a lecture, but a robust conversation about what you've been teaching for years. I understand you've written a dozen books, Dr. Hart.
Well, I have to do something with my life. But I want to make clear, is Larry not with us?
He's here. No, I just try and keep him in the background. I just try and keep him in the background. It's very tough to keep Larry out of the room, so I try and just keep him over there on the side for a little bit. So he is with us. Dr. Hart, you were at Westminster. I have a good friend, Jim Sweets, there. I have been. I've lectured at Westminster. How did you end up at Hillsdale from Westminster and Wheaton?
Well, I lost the job in 2008. And I had been working at the Intercollegiate Studies Institute in Wilmington and had gotten to know a number of faculty at Hillsdale, including the former provost, Dr. David Whalen. And so they brought me out for a guest trial run, and I fell in love with the place. And so I've been here relatively ever since.
Dr. Oren, I'm always amazed at how you collect people up there who happen to be great teachers. It's as though you intended that, unlike most of the colleges in America.
Well, you can't make your bones at Hillsdale College if the kids don't like to take your classes. And we like Daryl's wife Ann better than we like Daryl. But Daryl is He's one of us, very much. He's done fabulous work here, and he's not anything but a blessing.
Well, we are going to get to Jonathan Edwards, but I want to compliment whoever put together the Hillsdale American Heritage Reader, which I'm holding in my hand. As I went through it to prepare for this dialogue today, and I read the introduction to Jonathan Edwards, I learned more about the Enlightenment in Jerusalem and Athens than I had remembered from all those Gov 103 with Harvey Mansfield and everything at law school. This never comes up. Larry Arndt, I got to ask you to do a quick explanation of the phrase Jerusalem and Athens. And the reason being, our friends in Pittsburgh are going to say, what about us? The Steelers are pretty good too. What do you mean by Jerusalem and Athens?
Well, the Steelers have an old quarterback, and Jerusalem and Athens are much older than that.
Yeah.
So in what is the West? You have to wonder, what do we mean by the West? And what's odd about it is it means something universal. In fact, it means two universal things that come together. One is the idea of one God over all humans and all everything. And that comes from Jerusalem, and that's when it came Jews, and that was a new idea. And so in Greece, then you have this annoying person Socrates, and what he said was he got killed for it finally. Was that he tried to understand what things are, give an account of things, and especially the most important thing, the first and last thing, the good. What is it for a thing to be good? And that doesn't mean what is it for a thing to be good in Athens and a different thing to be good in Persia. What is the good? And that means outside the claims of the law, which is one of the reasons Socrates was killed. So if you compare Jesus, who completed the story of the Bible, Christians believe, I believe, with Socrates, they are both looking to heaven, looking to the eternal, looking to nature itself and nature's God to find a standard of truth. And that means that the West, which is the intertwining of those two things that make the West, and there are some tensions between them. But on the other hand, I believe, especially today, those tensions are greatly overstated. The truth is, we want to give an account of what's right for us, and that will lead us to an account. And this is, by the way, true both in Greek philosophy and in the Christian Bible, in the Hebrew Bible. That will lead you to an idea of the perfect, and that's where the word God comes in. So that's what it is, I think.
Professor Hart, do you want to elaborate on that at all? Athens and Jerusalem are sometimes in competition, but they are often colleagues. And at Hillsdale, I think that reconciliation is most advanced of anywhere that is an institution of higher education in America. Because you came out of Westminster and Wheaton, avowedly Christian institutions, and you now teach at an institution that is certainly full to the brim with Christians, but is not itself dedicated to any particular confession.
Well, in some ways it plays off what if I can say, Larry, without getting too formal here. Sorry, saying about the tensions in the West. I mean, there are tensions in Christianity. We have a lot of Roman Catholics. We have a lot of evangelicals. We even have a lot of confessional Protestants, such as Lutherans, Presbyterians, Anglicans, and then we even have Eastern Orthodox folks here. So we can't all assume the way I think sometimes we were encouraged to assume at Wheaton, for instance, that we were all on the same page. We don't necessarily assume that. What makes us on the same page, at least I understand it, is that we have this core curriculum in the history department. We teach the two core courses in that, and that winds up giving a kind of coherence overall, and then we sort of, not as if we fit Christianity in around the edges, but we still put it together with that core in view. And there are times there are tensions, but I think it keeps us all honest.
And when you teach the American Heritage course, Doctor, do you linger over the Great Awakening, or is that something that you have to move through fairly quickly? Because I think the Great Awakening is crucial to understanding America.
Well, I'd like to hear you say more about that. I sometimes wonder if in both we cover the first and the second, and the way to do it. I mean, it has a certain significance for Christianity that I don't know that it has necessarily for the nation or the emergence of the nation. And I think historians from Alan Heimert and Perry Miller, even going back into the 50s and 60s, tried to understand the First Great Awakening as a run-up in a way to the American founding. But I think too that if you look at the founding sort of more narrowly, it's hard to see the signs of the awakening, except when it comes to very important issues of religious liberty, and what Jefferson and Madison were working with for religious liberty in Virginia, which was in some ways codified then in the First Amendment.
Well, Professor Sklar, who taught me my early American political theory, used to teach that the Great Awakening took American activity out of the church and into the fields and into the public square, and generally taught Americans to organize on a transcontinental basis. So that there was evangelical activity in Georgia that became evangelical activity in Massachusetts, and that was the connective tissue that allowed the highways of thought, the committees of correspondence to be established. What do you make of that theory, Doctor?
Well, I think that really makes sense of the Second Great Awakening. I have a former, now deceased colleague, friend, Leo Rebuffo, who kind of tried to put a little bit of an edge on it by calling it the Pretty Good Awakening. And I use that all the time, and I do get laughs like that sometimes because it plays around with how great the Awakening was. But I think it makes a lot of sense of the Second Great Awakening, because I do think that was very much a civilizing and nationalizing event in which Protestants of different denominations pulled together, went to the frontier, and tried to teach people. I mean, they already know how to read, but give them apparatus to read, books to read, Sunday schools, churches, colleges. Hillsdale itself is partly an expression of that. So I think the Second Great Awakening was really important.
Would you define terms for the audience in chronological before we go to the break?
Oh, sure. The Second Great Awakening, I go roughly 1820 to 1840, although it carries beyond that, even into the Civil War. Some would say the Civil War is the culmination of the Second Great Awakening.
Okay, and I First Great Awakening is Jonathan Edwards, which we're coming back to after this break. And I think Sklar's point of view was that George Whitefield was the first guy to travel the highways and byways and taught Americans to talk to each other via messaging. And that was her argument, and I always thought it was a given. It's not a given, but we'll come back and talk about that. We'll get Dr. Oren's point of view on that. We are doing the Great Awakening, the first, and Jonathan Edwards this week on a special Hillsdale dialogue, not in our ordinary time, because we got to catch up because liberty's on the line. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, Americans. The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What is the reality for you and your deputies when it comes to the last 58 days in America? Have things changed for you when it comes to illegal migration in your county, Sheriff?
Oh, absolutely. And it's been a disastrous change. It is not a change that we welcomed or are enjoying, that's for sure. You know, immediately overnight, we started having, the last 2 months we've had 40-plus pursuits where they end in a bailout, which means that they run from us, they stop, everybody bails out of the vehicle into the desert. Typically, they'll leave somebody behind. Like we had one where 12 people bailed out of the car and they left a 16-year-old Guatemalan girl behind because they know that we're going to have to deal with this unaccompanied minor while all of them go free into this country. Last Wednesday alone, we had 49 apprehensions in one day. It's not uncommon for us to go out and have 20 apprehensions. And mind you, I'm 60 miles off the border. That's how far they're infiltrating into our country. Camouflage clothes. They don't want to be caught. And here's what I know I'm kind of running on, and I'll give you a second.
No. We need to know. Our listeners, our viewers need to know. So you tell us what's changed.
You know, and what I keep telling people, this isn't about immigration anymore. This is about human trafficking and drug trafficking into this country. And if you care about human beings, it shouldn't matter what party you are. If you care about protecting those people, then you should absolutely care about border security, because the cartel is using these people as to gain money. They're raping the women. They're using the children as pawns, which is clear as day right now, and they extort the men.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
I just got an email about someone who says they have to take mandated racial diversity seminar training or whatever it is. And all I have to say is that there is a piece of art, and I don't use that word lightly, that is so perfect, so funny, so politically incorrect, that hits this perfectly. It's from the legendary show The Office. Now, The Office started as an unbelievably politically incorrect show, and then it got into this kind of like quasi-woke thing later on. But the episode Diversity Day with Steve Carell, it's so politically incorrect, especially in today's time. I'm just going to tell you something right now. If I dared repeat some of the lines here, it wouldn't even be an advertiser boycott. I'd be an advertiser invasion. One of my favorite lines is Steve Carell looks into actually, this might be the pilot episode. You see, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but I am an expert in the central canon of the first season of The Office, because it all went downhill from there. I watched it later. The first season of The Office is so well written, as if they don't care about, they just said, we are going to swing for the fences, bottom of the ninth, we want this show to catch on, that they just took huge risks. And Steve Carell famously said, as Abraham Lincoln said, if you are a racist, I will attack you from the north. I highly encourage you to check it out, because we need to laugh about this stuff a little bit, because people are emailing me, Charlie, what do I do about this diversity seminar? If you think you have it bad, check out Michael Scott, who had to take the diversity class seminar.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
It is not normal, and my best argument is my antipathy to the veil that many Muslim women wear. It dehumanizes them. So why doesn't this mask dehumanize you?
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Dr. Larry Oren is my guest on this Hillsdale dialogue, along with Professor D.G. Hart. Dr. Hart's been teaching at Hillsdale for 10 years after a great career at Wheaton and Westminster Seminary. We're talking about the First Great Awakening and Jonathan Edwards, but right before he went to break, and by the way, all things Hillsdale are collected at hillsdale.edu, and all prior dialogues, 300 of them or so, are collected at hugh4hillsdale.com. Dr. Oren, what did you make of the theory of the Great Awakening being a door that opened the way for the founding to occur? Dr. Oren, what did you make of the theory of the Great Awakening?
If you look at it from the political point of view, you actually see, in my opinion, more clearly the importance of that thing. Because from the political point of view, the unprecedented thing that happened here first is that the idea was formed that you may not be governed except with your consent. And that meant that the king, with his glory and his golden carriage and his high birth, was not any more entitled to rule than Joe Blow on the street corner. The Great Awakening and Christianity in general had very much to do with that. We read the Mayflower Compact, right? And when they get ready to figure out how they're going to live together in this new world, they all have to join up. And see, that's the thing about Christianity. That's somewhere in the heart of it, right? Your salvation is personal. You have to believe. You behave yourself the best you can, right? But in Judaism, it wasn't like that. Before Jesus, and in Islam, it isn't like that exactly. So you have this religion that had come to see that the rulers can't go to heaven for you. And then on the other hand, there's a unity around all of those doctrines that is expressed with the fury in those Great Awakenings. There are four, I think, but some of them are more modern and not maybe worthy of the name. And the first one didn't nationalize because there wasn't a nation to nationalize. But it laid the ground, in my opinion, very much. And that meant, see, Jefferson and Madison, they were on the far wing of the separation of church and state, which, by the way, is there was no consensus about that at all at the time. And what the consensus of the Constitutional Convention was that only states could have established religion.
And can I ask both of you? My brief Steeler fan summary is that Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield brought the ability of Witherspoon to come, and Witherspoon brought Madison and Jefferson, even though he didn't teach Jefferson. So that there's an ABC sequence here. Larry, do you agree with that? I mean, it's a rough outline, but it seems to me clear in history.
We have an interest in thinking that the teachers are the creators of their students, but we actually know better than that. And those guys taught a lot of people, but they weren't all like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. Now, having said that, however, just think of this understanding that we have. We Americans have. I pray we can keep it because it's under assault right now. We have the understanding that we are appointed by God as agents in the universe. Each one of us. And we are accountable for how we perform our function, our delegated duty. And And that is just a very different model of government than, for example, in Greece too. We talked about Jerusalem and Athens. The Greek city, the polis, that was a much more. For example, you couldn't think of church and state in the polis. Gods were the gods of the city. And so the point is, in my opinion, Christianity is to this day more common and more fervent than it is anywhere in Europe. And there's a reason for that. It's a component of the ideas of the regime. And the religious freedom thing that Daryl mentioned. The reason that's crucial is being as passionate, devoted as we were to Christianity, we rend ourselves to pieces. Except that there's this thing: you can all worship the way you want to.
It's the pillar. Actually, it's the pillar on which everything stands. We'll be right back. Dr. Hart and Larry Oren. We're going to talk about Jonathan Edwards as promised right after the break. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. The Hillsdale Dialogue is underway.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
You know how many times he said it now? I think it's 4. I think he has accidentally called his vice president 4 times. What do you think the mainstream news media would be doing if Donald Trump accidentally called Mike Pence, President Pence, 4 times? They would be a 24-hour vigil for when they were going to put a straitjacket on Trump and take him out of the White House into the local mental institution. But when Joe Biden does it, well, it's Joe Biden. Wait, let me guess. Is it his stutter again? He's got this stutter that everybody says, his defenders say, is the reason he can barely speak in complete paragraphs. He's worried about his stutter. Is that, here it was, cut 1, Joe Biden talking about a vaccination center in Arizona. Listen to how he describes the Vice President of the United States.
Now, when President Harris and I took a virtual tour of a vaccination center in Arizona not long ago, one of the nurses on that tour, injecting people, giving vaccinations, said that each shot was like administering a dose of hope.
Yes, dose of hope. We're going to need it because when you watch the news, it sounds like we're all still dropping dead from COVID everywhere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Jerry Boyer of Town Hall Finance for townhall.com. The Congressional Budget Office just released its new debt figures. The national debt this year will top 102% of GDP. This has only happened twice before, both during World War II. This number does not count the proposed $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, nor does it count the money which was borrowed from Social Security, since that's considered intergovernmental debt. Debt levels this high break the intergenerational covenant that we have with our children and grandchildren. FDR borrowed to defeat the Nazis and Imperial Japan. Money well spent. Reagan borrowed to defeat the Soviet Union. That was also money well spent. These great projects made the world better for future generations. But our political class is not buying victories against international threats. They are buying political victories for incumbents. This is nothing more than fiscal abuse, and our kids will pay the price. It needs to stop. Now. I'm Jerry Boyer.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This isn't, as some have portrayed it, as some kind of spontaneous, random, organic response to Joe Biden being president. This is being institutionally organized for the profit of the cartels, correct?
Absolutely. And the cartels understand what our politics and our policies are better than we do as Americans. And they knew where Joe Biden was leaning in his administration, and they were more than willing and more than ready to help accommodate those people to come across this country. Look, they don't just let people come across. On the other side, the cartel is regulated. They make these people pay. They give them children to, hey, here, take this kid across with you. They're less likely to stop you. Or
so this is something that I want everybody to understand. I heard this from my friend, former Commissioner for Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan. They are using children from the northern counties in Mexico as props so that groups of adults coming across can say, we are a family unit, so the feds have to treat them differently. Are you confirming that, Sheriff Lamb?
Yes, 100%. And out in Collin County, Texas, one of my other fellow sheriffs out there, they do interdiction on the highways out there. He says no less than 3 to 5 times they have actually pulled cars over where the people in the front had no idea who the children in the back were, and the children in the back had no idea who the people in the front were. They know what our policies are. They're using that against us. They're using children, which is despicable. And honestly, where are these parents of these people?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
They don't think that America has the qualification to speak to China from a position of strength. Cut 91.
外交礼节
Well, I think we thought too well of the United States. We thought that the U.S. side will follow the necessary diplomatic protocols.
所以我们刚才必须采
Welcome back, Americans. Hugh Hewitt, a special Hillsdale dialogue because we're galloping to catch up to where we ought to be. Dr. Oren and I set out a project this year to cover the fundamentals of American liberty, and part of that is in the work of Jonathan Edwards. And so we've drafted Professor Hart, 10 years a doctor of teaching up at Hillsdale, the Lantern of the North. Dr. Hart, Jonathan Edwards is best known for Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. He's also probably lesser known as being the most important American theologian. And in an era where we know who Aquinas and Augustine and Luther are, we also know, and Paul, of course, but we also know who Edwards is. Why is he different from everybody else of his era?
Boy, that's I wasn't ready for that question. But I would say in part it's because he was reading so much, and it's an odd thing to think that he's on the frontier, and he has to worry about raids by Native Americans, and he eventually in his career becomes a missionary to Native Americans as well. So it's not as if it's a one-way street. But here you have. I mean, he's from a prominent family, but he's out there and he's reading all this as much stuff in English, but also Latin that he can get his hands on, and he has an enormous effect through his students, many of whom were apprentices with him, and there's just a sort of a continual revival, but we may be in the most concerted or longest revival of Edwards, dating back to Perry Miller in the middle of the 20th century to the present. So he winds up hitting a niche among American Protestants or American thinkers for whom, in some ways, you can't explain that. Right now, at Hillsdale, we're having a conference on Jane Austen and her movie adaptations of her, and it's never clear in some ways how she's going to catch on. She catches on later, and right now there's a big recovery of Austen in the movies. But similar thing goes on with Edwards at different points, and he just becomes this figure with whom whom people can interrogate, receive answers. His moving at the end of his life to the College of New Jersey, modern-day Princeton University, is also part of that. But he really has a much stronger following in New England among the so-called Edwardsians, and various figures keep him alive, and he has a pretty long run, even just within the Connecticut Congregationalists.
Now let me ask you specifically about a faithful narrative of the surprising work of God. That is in the Hillsdale American Heritage Reader. I had not read it before last week when I was getting ready for this and the William Penn conversation we had last week, and I was struck that he's a sociologist. Before there was such a thing as sociology. Is that a fair statement, Dr. Hart?
Yes, and I would only qualify to say that in the Puritan tradition, there was a long sort of exploration of someone's religious experience in the interior life and journal keeping and diaries. That was important, and Edwards is building on top of that. But by writing the way he does about these revivals in the 1730s, he calls attention to something that people and makes it public in a way that a lot of these journals and diaries had been private, and they were later published, but they weren't necessarily well read back then for the wider public. So Edwards is sort of doing something that had been going on, but then it becomes. I mean, it's originally published, I think, in London and then in Edinburgh and then in Boston later. So it becomes international even before, say, George Whitefield shows up in 1739 and makes the awakening a transatlantic phenomenon.
It's really remarkable. 300 years ago, it's almost 300 years ago, an American pastor in Western Massachusetts was taking detailed notes on individual conversions for the purpose of what, Dr. And why did you put this in and not sinners in the hand of the angry God? Dr. Oren is speechless.
Oh, I'm sorry. As a rule, the answer to the question why is something not in there is there isn't room. But we want the current edition and version of the history two course sequence. There's a textbook for each. That was published after I came to the college. And I had a lot to do with that. Mark Kaltoff, who's been the chairman of the department since your grandfather was a kid. And we spent a lot of time on things like that. What's the most representative? Because here your readers, our listeners will be having the same problem. There's two tasks that have to be completed to become an educated person, and life is not long enough for either of them. Yep. And one of them is you have to survey. You have to see what all the stuff is. You have to look at all the ages. You have to look at all of the at least important people. And the other is you have to know a few things deeply. And scholars are people like Darrell. He fell in love with Jonathan Edwards a long time ago. He still is. Right? And so he's a treasure because he's gone deep. Well, you need your, especially when you're getting your education, putting together a jigsaw puzzle and the pieces don't fit. You need a teacher to help you orient yourself as you go along. And then you'll end up, by the way, with your own understanding inevitably. But to make the picture. It's good. I personally think these dialogues are good, right? Because I learn from them, and I bet everybody else does too. And then the ones who spend some time with it study more, they learn more deeply.
I think we get a harpoon into people, and the harpoon we're going to get into them today is what the heck is a faithful narrative of the surprising work of God? Because I don't think anyone knows about this, Dr. Hart. I think everybody knows about educated people. Cleveland people know about sinners in the hands of an angry God. I don't think they know about a faithful narrative of the work of the surprising work of God. I didn't. Do you find it to be a surprise to your students?
Yes. But
and many students, for good or ill, don't know much about Edwards either. So if they have encountered him, it's whatever in literature anthologies, and usually Sinners is there. I think part of the significance too, and I wasn't part of the department when we put this textbook together, but I think it does make the point about how dramatic the conversion experience was in the case of say Phoebe Bartlett and the other woman who's in the account. Her name I'm forgetting right now.
Phoebe is. I was going to go to Phoebe because she's 4 years old. But I've got the book in front of me, so I'll find the first lady's name. Abigail Hutchinson. Let's go on Phoebe. A 4-year-old becomes the subject of study of Jonathan Edwards. That is astonishing to me.
It is. I actually struggle with it because if I were a parent, I don't have children, but I actually my own personal religious background. If we can get personal, I walked the aisle at the age of 5, so I can in some ways relate to Phoebe, but I was not going through anything like this, and it is disconcerting, and oftentimes students do feel like what's going on here, and I think it's also important to think in the longer haul of Edwards' writing and his. So he was really surprised. So the word surprise in the title is significant because he didn't expect this kind of awakening from a series of sermons that he was preaching on. I believe justification by faith alone. It really was. He thought a work of divine intervention. But by 1742, he writes a book on religious affections, and he then begins to try to be more specific about the good conversions distinguished from the bad ones, and how to read the signs of those. So he may have been swept up in the moment at this point. And then comes what reflections later to try to sort out the good from the bad, and that also could be actually very revealing. I was in a course recently with one of our theology professors talking about religious affections even last week. And in some ways that's a text that's known better. But I think this also captures the way in which the awakening started. I mean, Whitefield made it an international phenomenon, and colonial historians will say that Whitefield was the first household name before George Washington, that everybody knew him, which goes back to your point about connecting the colonies. But even before Whitefield started to preach and itinerate, meaning he was a traveling evangelist, these kinds of revivals were happening in places like New Jersey, where Edwards was, and so this also gives a sense of that local expression of revival before it becomes intercolonial and internationalism.
In this, there is also clearly, we got a minute to the break, Doctor, clearly the idea of a battle underway. And this is very, I'll call it primitive Christian, not meaning stupid Christian, just early Christian, that there is a battle between good and evil, and it's fought in different places at different times, and it was particularly being fought in Western Massachusetts when Jonathan Edwards was studying this congregation. That doesn't endure in American Christianity much anymore, I don't think. But do you think it defined Edwards?
Yes, I do. But I think in some ways, Puritanism was in decline in the 18th century. I mean, it had pretty much phased out by then as a kind of corporate social phenomenon. But the piety did persist, and Edwards is a good expression of that. And the Puritans. A lot can be said bad of them, but also this was part of their outlook, that the world was full of spirits, both good and bad, and it was a constant battle. And it does reflect.
You had to stay on your toes. When we come back, I'm going to ask Dr. Hart and Dr. Hart, what did Jonathan Edwards believe about the nature of Christ? So don't go anywhere. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Except head over to Food for the Poor. At the top of HughHewitt.com, there is a banner. We're talking about things of the soul. Exercise your soul. I mean, really exercise your soul. It is not forgotten every good deed that you do for the lost and the least. Jesus says it in the Gospels. It's absolutely true. Food for the poor can be your hands and your help. All you have to do is $10, $100, $50, $5,000, $50 million. Someday someone will give them $50 million and they'll be able to revolutionize Central America. Food for the Poor banner is at hughhewitt.com. Please go there today and be as generous as possible. Also, don't forget, even though it's a special Hillsdale dialogue on this Thursday, we'll have another one tomorrow. Don't forget relieffactor.com. Every day I tell you, every day you listen, some of you finally reach the tipping point. You hear me tell you every day that relieffactor.com works, and you hear me take it every hour in the first hour of every show. I take relieffactor.com. Why? Because I'm active, I'm older, I don't like joint pain, I hate ankle pain, I hate driving long distances because it somehow gets my sciatica. But it's better when you use relieffactor.com. All natural supplements. Don't stop taking a prescription drug that's been prescribed by your doctor, but do try adding in not over-the-counters, but all-natural relieffactor.com. Join the tens of thousands of people who take it every day and swear by it. $19.95 gets you a 3-week starter pack delivered to your door. Relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Don't get left behind. Join us in taking it every day. Relieffactor.com. Coming right back with more of the Hillsdale Dialogue on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Folks, I'm talking to Anne McElhenney and Phelim McAleer. You have a film that you are on the verge of making. It's called My Son Hunter, and it's about Hunter Biden.
When you think about it, this should be the opening skit on every Saturday Night Live.
I was just going to say, precisely, yes.
I mean, and you know, I don't like making fun of alcoholics being Irish, you know, but the politics is so funny. I mean, this guy, as Anne said, you know, thrown out of the Navy, alcoholic, drug addict,
gets a stripper pregnant.
Who hasn't? You know, he goes to rehab, meets a homeless woman on the way into rehab called Bicycles, because she's always got a bicycle, goes off and lives with her for 3 months. This is by his own admission. But the joke, the real joke here is, who did Burisma? They did an international executive search, and who did they decide was the best person for their
on the
force?
planet Earth, after a deep dive, you know, in really checking out all the people available and doing all background checks, this is the one guy you want on your energy board.
He's a crack addict. He's filmed himself in pornographic acts and put it on the web. Jimmy Carter had a brother named Billy who was constantly getting Jimmy Carter in trouble. I remember this as a kid and thinking how embarrassing it would be to have somebody close to you in the family who's saying things and doing things. This is that times a billion. He's compromising. Imagine if Billy Carter had been talking to the Soviets. Imagine if Billy Carter had been doing back deals with the Soviets.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
I'm a teacher in an elementary school, and a lot of our professional development is on racism because our school is very diverse in that population. And one of the professional development we had was on diverse books and the lack of diverse books. Mm-hmm. So basically the statistics they gave us was that, this is from 2018, that 50% of all children's books that are published are based on characters who are white. So 50% white, 27% are animals or other, you know, things besides people. 10% is based on blacks, 7% on Asian Pacific or Asian people, 5% on Latinos, and then 1% on American Indians. And how this is an example of systemic racism, and it's very hard to find diverse books.
My first thought, Mary, is who sat around and added them all up like that? I mean, that's just amazing to me.
Right?
That's stunning to me. A good book is a good book. A good character is a good character. Huckleberry Finn had all sorts of references and N-words in it, but it was about a bondage between a black man and a young white boy. And it was a
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt with Dr. Larry Oren and Dr. D.G. Hart, who's got a new book coming out on the spiritual biography of Ben Franklin, which I'm looking forward to because he's always confused the heck out of me as to what he believes. Dr. Oren, I'm going to give you the first at bat, and then Larry to finish up on the significant. What did Jonathan Edwards believe about the right relationship between a believer and Christ?
Can I? Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. You can redefine it too if you want.
Was there something in the text that prompted you to ask that?
I think he's suspicious of Phoebe. I wonder if you just hinted in the last segment that he became suspicious of affections, and I wonder if he almost is disappointed because it's fading when he writes this, and he sends it off to England. So I was wondering if he thought salvation once and done, or if you could gain and lose it.
I don't think. I mean, Edwards is a really hard guy to read as a theologian because he wasn't a systematic. He was a systematic thinker, but he wasn't a systematic writer. So most of his, even his great theological works on the Trinity and free will later in his life were occasional in a way. They were long essays. They weren't sort of dogmatic or systematic theology that of an Aquinas or later in the 19th century someone like Charles Hodge at Princeton Seminary. But I don't know the corpus incredibly well. But I tend to think he would have maintained the Calvinist view of things that you cannot lose your salvation.
Yep.
The idea of the perseverance of the saints. But there is a sense too in which the fires of conversion, the fires of devotion subside, and so there is a. I mean, the Puritans were known as hot Protestants, and heat does cool off. How do you keep the heat going? And do you actually make people really tired by maintaining that heat? It's a hard thing to do, but he's reflecting that there. But I don't think you lose it. You just lose the intensity, perhaps.
And Dr. do you think if Edwards were to survey America in 2021, he would be, of course, he'd be aghast, but would he be surprised?
Oh, sure. First of all, I slighted it. I've been repenting of it ever since the latest Great Awakening in the 20th century. Because what popped in my mind was Billy Graham, and there are two movies about Billy Graham, and they're both just tremendous. And that guy was something else.
Yep.
He was a tremendous man, and he had this very long career. And he prosecuted it beautifully, in my opinion. And he was a great world figure. And the fact that that has happened so recently, that's another sign that can happen again. Right. And I've been sitting here praying for it in part because look what's going on in the world today. The state is becoming the church. It is the arbiter of everything. It invades family. It tries to tell people in detail how to run even little colleges and K through 12 schools. And that's one reason they're so miserable. They're being commanded by people who don't know anything about it. And people have to rebel against that because what Christianity does and what the American Revolution does and what Greek philosophy does is it invites you to be fully a human being, to live your own life. Right. So Edwards would be appalled by this, but I can't imagine that he would think that it was irreversible.
Very well put. Last question to you, Dr. Hart. Is there in Edwards' theology that you're familiar with in his writing, a theory that which is gone will come again, and once it gets here, it will go again?
Well, my sense is that he was a postmillennialist, meaning that he thought the outworking of redemption was continually advancing, and that was also part of the reason, I think, why he saw these revivals and eventually the Great Awakening with Whitefield coming as a progression to a point where at the end of this great outpouring of salvation, Christ would return. If answer your question, I think you have to keep that part of it in mind. He was in some ways progressive in the sense that he thought it was advancing, despite this conflict between the forces of evil and the forces of grace. But that the forces of grace were triumphing in the end, and you may have. It wouldn't be flattening the curve. The curve would keep going up, as it were. You may have little departures here and there, but still it would keep going. And so I guess that's the way I would read Edwards in relation to that question.
All right, next week, George Whitfield, because the curve is not going up, and I think Dr. Oren has put his finger on it. If that which is gone will come again, we'll find out. The Hillsdale Dialogue in a special hour this week, two of them. Tune in on Friday if you want Whitfield, part 2. And go back if you missed William Penn from last Friday, because it all fits together in a package. Dr. Larry Oren, Dr. Hart, thank you. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. Come right back, America. More on this great station. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Folks, I'm talking to Anne McElhenney and Phelim McAleer. You have a film that you are on the verge of making. It's called My Son Hunter, and it's about Hunter Biden.
When you think about it, this should be the opening skit on every Saturday Night Live.
I was just going to say, precisely, yes.
I mean, and you know, I don't like making fun of alcoholics being Irish, you know, but the politics is so funny. I mean, this guy, as Anne said, you know, thrown out of the Navy, alcoholic, drug addict,
gets a stripper pregnant.
Who hasn't? He goes to rehab, meets a homeless woman on the way into rehab called Bicycles, because she's always got a bicycle, goes off and lives with her for 3 months. This is by his own admission. But the real joke here is, who did Burisma? They did an international executive search, and who did they decide was the best person for their
on the planet Earth, after a deep dive, you know, in really checking out all the people available and doing all background checks. This is the one guy you want on your energy board.
He's a crack addict. He's filmed himself in pornographic acts and put it on the web. Jimmy Carter had a brother named Billy, who was constantly getting Jimmy Carter in trouble. I remember this as a kid and thinking how embarrassing it would be to have somebody close to you in the family who's saying things and doing things. This is that times a billion. He's compromising. Imagine if Billy Carter had been talking to the Soviets. Imagine if Billy Carter had been doing back deals with the Soviets.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
I'm a teacher in an elementary school, and a lot of our professional development is on racism because our school is very diverse in that population. And one of the professional development we had was on diverse books and the lack of diverse books. Mm-hmm. So basically the statistics they gave us was that this is from 2018, that 50% of all children's books that are published are based on characters who are white. So 50% white, 27% are animals or other, you know, things besides people. 10% is based on blacks, 7% on Asian Pacific or Asian people, 5% on Latinos, and then 1% on American Indians. And how this is an example of systemic racism, and it's very hard to find diverse books.
My first thought, Mary, is who sat around and added them all up like that? I mean, that's just amazing to me. Right? That's stunning to me. The good book is a good book. A good character is a good character. Huckleberry Finn had all sorts of references and N-words in it, but it was about a bondage between a black man and a young white boy. And it was a wonderful story. How that's become racist is beyond me. Mayor, the other point I want to make is presumably all of this is to make sure the kids have good self-esteem. As I've said on my program, going back over decades, black kids have higher self-esteem than white kids. Black girls have higher self-esteem than white girls. Black boys have way higher self-esteem than Asian boys and Asian girls. So if this is all about making sure that black boys and black girls have self-esteem, mission accomplished.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
You know how many times he said it now? I think it's 4. I think he has accidentally called his vice president 4 times. What do you think the mainstream news media would be doing if Donald Trump accidentally called Mike Pence, President Pence, 4 times? They would be a 24-hour vigil for when they were going to put a straitjacket on Trump and take him out of the White House into the local mental institution. But when Joe Biden does it, well, it's Joe Biden. Wait, let me guess. Is it his stutter again? He's got this stutter that everybody says, his defenders say, is the reason he can barely speak in complete paragraphs. He's worried about his stutter. Is that, here it was, cut 1, Joe Biden talking about a vaccination center in Arizona. Listen to how he describes the vice president of the United States.
Now, when President Harris and I took a virtual tour of a vaccination center in Arizona not long ago, one of the nurses on that tour, injecting people, giving vaccinations, said that each shot was like administering a dose of hope.
Yes, dose of hope. We're going to need it because when you watch the news, it sounds like we're all still dropping dead from COVID everywhere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Jerry Boyer of Town Hall Finance for townhall.com. The Congressional Budget Office just released its new debt figures. The national debt this year will top 102% of GDP. This has only happened twice before, both during World War II. This number does not count the proposed $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, nor does it count the money which was borrowed from Social Security, since that's considered intergovernmental debt. Debt levels this high break the intergenerational covenant that we have with our children and grandchildren. FDR borrowed to defeat the Nazis and Imperial Japan. Money well spent. Reagan borrowed to defeat the Soviet Union. That was also money well spent. These great projects made the world better for future generations. But our political class is not buying victories against international threats. They are buying political victories for incumbents. This is nothing more than fiscal abuse, and our kids will pay the price. It needs to stop. Now. I'm Jerry Boyer.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This isn't, as some have portrayed it, as some kind of spontaneous, random, organic response to Joe Biden being president. This is being institutionally organized for the profit of the cartels, correct?
Absolutely. And the cartels understand what our politics and our policies are better than we do as Americans. And they knew where Joe Biden was leaning in his administration, and they were more than willing and more than ready to help accommodate those people to come across this country. Look, they don't just let people come across. On the other side, the cartel is regulated. They make these people pay. They give them children to, hey, here, take this kid across with you. They're less likely to stop you. Or
so this is something that I want everybody to understand. I heard this from my friend, former Commissioner for Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan. They are using children from the northern counties in Mexico as props so that groups of adults coming across can say, we are a family unit, so the feds have to treat them differently. Are you confirming that, Sheriff Lamb?
Yes, 100%. And out in Collin County, Texas, one of my other fellow sheriffs out there, they do interdiction on the highways out there. He says no less than 3 to 5 times they have actually pulled cars over where the people in the front had no idea who the children in the back were, and the children in the back had no idea who the people in the front were. They know what our policies are.
Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt. I'm so pleased to welcome Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming back to the show. Good morning, Senator. Good to have you as always.
Always great to be with you. Thank you.
I picked up so many new affiliates, Dr. Barrasso. I'd love for you to explain to them what the conference chair does, since you are the third-ranking Republican in the Senate, you are the conference chair. What does that do?
Well, we basically work on the messaging so that the consensus opinion of the members of the Republican Senate can make a message and send it out in ways that people can understand it, away from all the gobbledygook of legislative talk, but just talk about what we see happening, and specifically with this administration taking the country in a far left direction that we all see as radical, extreme, dangerous, and scary.
And you're very good at it, and I notice you've organized a trip to the border. Last week, Senator Portman was just back from the border. Who's going now?
We have actually 19 senators going, and that would take the rest of the discussion if we went through each of them. But Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, the two senators from Texas, are going to be leading the way. We're going to be into McAllen tonight. We're going to be doing a night tour with the Border Patrol. We'll divide up and go out on patrol, and then all day tomorrow go to some of the areas where people are being processed, go to the bridge, take a look at how things are done legally, how things are done illegally, look at the areas where the wall construction has been stopped the day that President Biden came into office. We want to thank these Border Patrol men and women who are out there every day putting their life on the line, trying to secure the border. We want to hear their stories, what they're up against, what they're seeing, and this historic crush of individuals coming into this country. We're on a pace to go 2 million for this year. You know, the numbers are astronomical, very hard to even comprehend.
I did read yesterday that 3,000 teenagers are bound for the San Diego Convention Center. I can't think of a less appropriate place to put teenagers than the Convention Center. Are you going to stop by there and see what's going on in the San Diego Convention Center?
We're not going to be in San Diego. We're gonna, but I'm sure there are baby senators that are going to take a look at that as well. The issue that's what's going on at the border is it's almost criminal. I mean, it is criminal if you take a look at the way the law is being broken and the way that the Biden administration is refusing to enforce the law, refusing to secure the border, and taking down issues and things that were put in place to stop the incentives of having people come to the United States. And they basically flipped on the green light, said, come, our borders are open. The word went around the world. If you can get to the United States, you can stay. Because as you know, not only did Joe Biden sign 5 executive orders on his first day in office that have to do specifically with immigration, he also has now introduced legislation, the Democrats introduced his legislation to provide a path to citizenship for 11 million illegal immigrants who are already in the country.
Now, we can talk about the specifics of that, but I want to stay focused on the crisis for a moment. I began the show by joking I was going to send my producer, Dwayne, to Chernobyl to do a remote because that would make him look the way that Kamala Harris looked when Joe Biden announced yesterday she was becoming the border czar. It's like Joe Biden's mad at her because there's no way to win this, right? You worked with Senator, now Vice President Harris. What is she supposed to do? She doesn't have any legislative authority.
No, she has none. And her sympathies clearly from her time in the Senate are not with our Border Patrol agents. It's not with law and order. Her sympathies are with those who are trying to come here illegally. We've seen this in testimony prior. We've seen it when she ran for president. She said, well, he shouldn't be prosecuted for coming into the country. It shouldn't be a criminal act, more like giving somebody a speeding ticket or a parking ticket. That's her position. She has been very against immigration and custom enforcement, against ICE, has done terrible things in questioning directors relating to ICE. So I'm not sure that she actually even wants to fix the problem that we're facing at the border. I think she's the wrong person at a critical time, and I know the president has a press conference today. I'm hoping the press really hammers him about the fact that he is the only president of the last 4 prior to him who's blocked the press from going to the facilities at the border. Clinton allowed it. Obama allowed it. Bush allowed it. Trump allowed it. Joe Biden says, no, nothing going on here. You have no right to see what's happening, and 19 of us are heading to the border. Tonight, we're bringing press along with us, and we're going to see if they're going to force them to stay out based on President Biden's demands.
Some photos from the Donna facility did emerge, and it's quite clear that it's at least as bad as it was under President Trump. We have no stories, though, on unaccompanied minors or minors being separated from parents, both alleged and real. I hope you look into that. My question is, Dr. Barrasso, you're a doctor. You care about kids. What happens to these kids? I mean, what pipeline are they sent into? I have yet to read a story that follows a half dozen children of different ages into whatever is the Biden system. I just don't know what happens to them.
No, and no one does. And there's 2 parts of it. There's what happens to them on their way up on this perilous journey. Which ones of them don't even make it? Which ones are killed along the way, trafficked, used, and put into sex slavery and other locations that aren't showing up where we're talking about. So you have that. You also have what happens when they are released to others. Are they responsible individuals? They've done the DNA testing, and you say, no, these people aren't even related, and they say they're in a family, and they're not. So you have this whole series of stories. The bottom line is we're not enforcing the law. We are, under this president, inviting and sending out a message. Our borders are open. Come to America. We will take you. We will keep you, and you will someday become a citizen.
Well, what I'm very much afraid of is that some of these are conveyor belts into human slavery, into trafficking, not just sex trafficking, but sometimes piecework. In other words, they've got a name pinned to their shirt. That individual has paid for an individual. They get moved along, no DNA testing, and they end up in a sweatshop for 10 to 15 years. And this happens, Dr. Barrasso. I'm sure you know that. What is Team Biden doing? When you encourage this kind of massive influx, you facilitate that kind of oppression and indeed pseudo-slavery.
Yeah, well, they're putting their head in the sand. This isn't a surprise. They're trying to ignore it, avoid talking about it, not answer questions about it, but you're exactly right. We know that's happening. You mentioned Rob Portman, who was there last week. He's been a leader in the Senate and fighting on these issues and introducing legislation along that way. Democrats want to look the other way. That is not part of their narrative, but it is part of the very sad story that's happening in this country as these people are being used, trafficked, and sold into slavery in this country today, 2021.
So do you have any idea of the number who have crossed over since President Biden became president?
No, we're certainly for children, we're at the highest number ever. This past month, we have the most ever who are currently detained, and in terms of adults, we see those numbers are up, and even the head of Homeland Security has said we're at a 20-year high. That's the message that's been sent out by this administration. The green light has been lit. They said, come on, we're welcoming you, and it's just wrong. And I'll tell you, I hope these questions come out to President Biden today during his press conference. The press needs to hold this president accountable, ask him the questions, the hard questions of, are you going to allow the press in? Is there a crisis at the border? And then you get into all of the other issues. But I think people want to know today, and I'm hearing this from folks in Wyoming this past weekend, is Joe Biden commander-in-chief, or is he just a deer in the headlights? What are we going to see when he presents himself to the press today?
2 last questions. Are you going to investigate whether or not COVID testing is happening? And then this is obscure, but it matters to me. Team Biden is hostile to organizations based upon faith, and they have demonstrated that again and again and again. Are some of these refugees who are allowed to remain in the United States being diverted from organizations based on faith like Catholic Charities simply because of the Biden administration hostility to them? First one, COVID tested. Second one, organizations based on faith.
Yeah, well, we know, and even NBC has reported on COVID testing in one area of Texas. They're not being tested as they're coming across and being released into the United States. They're being tested at a bus station, and if they're testing positive, and over 100 have tested positive, I think last month, Hugh, the story from NBC reports, they're then put on buses and told, go wherever it is you're going, and then once you get there, quarantine. These are people that have tested positive at the bus stations in Brownsville, Texas. So this is adding to the spread of COVID. With regard to people of faith, look, we've seen this administration attack our faith, not just here. Look at who they put in as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Becerra is a trial lawyer, Attorney General of California, who sued with the Little Sisters of the Poor. And now what we have is he's overseeing all of this, and he was at the meeting at the White House yesterday taking a look at how to deal with and so-called help with this crisis that we're affected at the border. So I think this Biden administration has been wrong on this issue from day one.
Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, chair of the Republican Conference, thank you for joining me. Good luck on your trip south. Come right back, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What is the reality for you and your deputies when it comes to the last 58 days in America? Have things changed for you when it comes to illegal migration in your county, Sheriff?
Oh, absolutely. And it's been a disastrous change. It is not a change that we welcomed or are enjoying, that's for sure. You know, immediately overnight, we started having, the last 2 months we've had 40-plus pursuits where they end in a bailout, which means that they run from us, they stop, everybody bails out of the vehicle into the desert. Typically, they'll leave somebody behind. Like we had one where 12 people bailed out of the car and they left a 16-year-old Guatemalan girl behind because they know that we're going to have to deal with this unaccompanied minor while all of them go free into this country. Last Wednesday alone, we had 49 apprehensions in one day. It's not uncommon for us to go out and have 20 apprehensions. And mind you, I'm 60 miles off the border. That's how far they're infiltrating into our country. Camouflage clothes. They don't want to be caught. And here's what I know I'm kind of running on, and I'll give you a second.
No. We need to know. Our listeners, our viewers need to know. So you tell us what's changed.
And what I keep telling people, this isn't about immigration anymore. This is about human trafficking and drug trafficking into this country. And if you care about human beings, it shouldn't matter what party you are. If you care about protecting those people, then you should absolutely care about border security, because the cartel is using these people to gain money. They're raping the women. They're using the children as pawns, which is clear as day right now, and they extort the men.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
I just got an email about someone who says they have to take mandated racial diversity seminar training or whatever it is. And all I have to say is that there is a piece of art, and I don't use that word lightly, that is so perfect, so funny, so politically incorrect, that hits this perfectly. It's from the legendary show The Office. Now, The Office started as an unbelievably politically incorrect show, and then it got into this kind of like quasi-woke thing later on. But the episode Diversity Day with Steve Carell, it's so politically incorrect, especially in today's time. I'm just going to tell you something right now. If I dared repeat some of the lines here, it wouldn't even be an advertiser boycott. I'd be an advertiser invasion. One of my favorite lines is Steve Carell looks into the Actually, this might be the pilot episode. You see, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but I am an expert in the central canon of the first season of The Office, because it all went downhill from there. I watched the later. The first season of The Office is so well written, as if they don't care about, they just said, we are going to swing for the fences, bottom of the ninth, we want this show to catch on, that they just took huge risks. Steve Carell famously said, as Abraham Lincoln said, if you are a racist, I will attack you from the north. I highly encourage you to check it out, because we need to laugh about this stuff a little bit, because people are emailing me, Charlie, what do I do about this diversity seminar? If you think you have it bad, check out Michael Scott, who had to take the diversity class seminar.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
It is not normal, and my best argument is my antipathy to the veil that many Muslim women wear. It dehumanizes them. So why doesn't this mask dehumanize you? There used to be.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, the business story of the day. The heads of Facebook, of Twitter, and of Google will be appearing in Congress today. They are going to try and head off at the pass a bipartisan effort to reform tech regulation, big tech regulation under Section 230 of the Communications Act. I don't know that they're going to be successful. They have managed to piss off everybody on both sides of the Congress for a variety of reasons. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And everybody thinks of big tech as the enemy for whatever reason. There are lots of different reasons. So while the hearings are never particularly productive, it's the staff members you got to watch when they go away and they sit down. Now, all of these companies have hired lobbyists. I'm not now, nor have I ever been a lobbyist. I don't work for people that way. But I watch closely who is hiring the lobbyists, because it tells you who feels under threat. And the largest expenditure on lobbying in Washington, D.C., the K Street cadre, is big tech. And it's all over. It's left, right, center. They hire everybody who breathes. If I wanted to lay down my radio career and double my salary, I would go to work. Because I talk to people like Barrasso and Leader McConnell and Cotton every day. But I don't lobby them. I just tell them what I think. And what I think is we need a comprehensive reform of big tech. And we need it for national security reasons that I'll talk about later with Josh Rogin when he joins me to talk about his book, Chaos Under Heaven, which if you have not yet bought, you should go to Amazon.com right now and buy. So that's the big story of the day. What are markets doing? Well, yesterday they didn't do much. The Dow was down 3 points. The S&P was down 21, and NASDAQ took a pummeling, falling 265 points, perhaps in anticipation of getting beat up in the form of their big 3 or 4 on Capitol Hill today. Overseas, it's all red this morning, but the good news is the 10-year Treasury dropped even lower, down to 1.61. It had been 1.63. Before that, it had been 1.65. It got up above 1.7, but interest rates have stabilized after repeated declarations by Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, that he will not be raising interest rates no matter what happens with inflation. I don't really know how they can hold that, but he said it's going to be 2 years. And so the folks at andrewandtodd.com are as busy as they've ever been. Call them, 888-888-1172. Now, you hear me say this every day and you never do it. No matter what your interest rate is, you should check to see if there's a better one. And no matter if you started before and you stopped, you should start again. Call up Andrew, call up Todd, 888-888-1172, or any member of their team and say, I got started a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago and I lost the thread. and I'm embarrassed, but I want to pick it up again because I'm losing money every month. You are losing money every month. You really are. You're losing money every month. $100, $200. What's that worth to you over the life of a 30-year loan? That's a lot. That's a lot of money that you could be investing, that you could be saving for education, that you could be spending on yourself. Just think, as restaurant dinners out. Once a month, you don't go out to dinner because you're not saving $50 a month on your interest rate. It's very easy to do. Simply visit the website andrewandtodd.com or call 888-888-1172 and double check your mortgage. Serious about this? Get it done today. I'm also very serious about HughHewitt.com. When you go there, you'll get to see things like the audio and the transcript of my interview yesterday with Eric Greitens, which made the front page of the Kansas City Star. I can't believe that. You'll find all sorts of great stuff. You'll find SalemNow.com and the advertisement for the movie Church People. One of the funniest movies SalemNow.com has put up. Use my name, Hugh, to get the discount. Church People is hilarious. So go and watch it. It's a comedy based on, well, you got it, church people. So it's worth the break. But you'll also see at the very top, Food for the Poor. This is my last 5 days of pitching to you, becoming part of the solution, not part of it. You just heard John Barrasso. These people are fleeing in record numbers, many of them because they have nothing to eat. Please help them where they live. In Honduras, throughout Central America, Food for the Poor is working to get them food. Your $37 feeds a child for 6 months. Your $100 takes care of 3. Go to HughHewitt.com, click on the Food for the Poor banner, and give today. Thank you. I'll be right back with Fred Barnes. Welcome back, Americans. Hugh Hewitt talked with John Barrasso about media denial of access. The media is not allowed into the border camps. Jen Psaki was pressed by CNN's Jeff Zelny about this yesterday. Cut number 6.
Follow up on the question on the border. The access being granted today for the pool is of a facility that is aspirational of where you want to move these children. Mm-hmm. What about access to the facilities where there is overcrowding and there is an actual problem? Why was this one chosen over those?
We're also open to providing access there, and this is just the first step in a process of providing greater access to the media.
And when would that decision be made? You said earlier this week that you would be working on access. Is this the only access, or will that be coming?
No, I would consider it's ongoing, and we wanted to provide pool coverage, as you all know, who are in the television field of television, that allows for a video camera to provide access to all the networks. We felt that would be a good first step, and we're looking forward to continuing to engage about how to provide increased access.
Would you agree, though, that you've chosen the facility that is the aspirational facility as opposed to the problem at this moment?
Well, I would say we all agree that the Border Patrol facilities are not places where children should be. They are children should be moving more quickly through those facilities. That is what our policy central focus is right now, as you know, Jeff. And it's also becoming a public health concern because of the number of kids who are moving through those facilities and the fact.
Why not show those to the American people?
We will, and we are working with the Border Patrol and with DHS to determine how we can do that.
Now, she is not the only one being pressed, because it's not just reporters who are asking the obvious question. Why is the First Amendment protected free press denied access to government facilities that they were allowed into under Donald Trump? Why is Joe Biden tougher on the press than Donald Trump was? Lindsey Graham raised this question yesterday, cut number 7.
Most Republicans want to make sure that we deal fairly with those who've been here a long time, but we address the underlying problems of illegal immigration. That's not an unreasonable request. There used to be Democrats who understood to get legalization on the table, you had to address the underlying causes of illegal immigration. Those voices have been silenced. The open borders crowd is now firmly in control of immigration. Where is AOC? Why aren't you at the border looking at the things being reported? If you were worried about children on Trump being in bad conditions, this is worse. If you're worried about people having COVID outbreaks, this is the biggest COVID spreader in the entire country. So where are you?
He's wondering where he is. Ted Cruz picked up on the issue of the camps into which children are being placed and the double standard between the years of Trump and the years of Biden. Cut number 10.
Tomorrow night, 18 senators are going to be traveling down to the southern border, traveling down to Texas, to see firsthand the crisis that is unfolding, to see firsthand the over 100,000 illegal immigrants who were detained last month, to see the over 15,000 children that are in custody of the Biden administration right now, to see the conditions where the Biden administration is releasing illegal immigrants into the public who are testing positive for COVID at a rate 7 times higher than the U.S. population. It is a crisis. It is a crisis that was created by the Biden administration, by their own policies. As soon as Joe Biden was sworn in as president, he halted construction of the wall. He reinstituted catch and release, and he ended the Remain in Mexico policy. And this crisis is unfolding and getting worse and worse and worse by the day. We're traveling down there, 18 of us. But something is going to be different on this border trip from previous trips to the border, which is our friends in the media right now are not allowed to come. You've been invited. We want you to come. We want the media to be there. We want the American people to see what's happening. But Joe Biden doesn't want you to see that. The Biden administration has issued a gag order, a blackout order that the media cannot come. For 4 years, we heard Democrats going on and on about kids in cages. Well, Joe Biden desperately does not want you to see the Biden cages. And his solution is to say, no cameras, no TV cameras, no media. By the way, I've been to the border many, many times. I've been to the border under Barack Obama. Media were allowed. I've been to the border under Donald Trump. Media were allowed. Before that, George W. Bush, media were allowed on the border. Before that, Bill Clinton, media were allowed on the border. Joe Biden is issuing this media blackout because he's terrified of the American people seeing the disaster that is unfolding. We are fighting for the media that you have a right to be there. You have a right to have cameras there. You have a right to take pictures and to show the American people what's happening. And I would note the Biden administration's stated reason why the media are not allowed is the risk is too high that you guys have COVID. The risk is too high that a reporter or a cameraman might have COVID. Never mind that at the Donna facility, which we're going to be visiting on Friday, Donna facility has a capacity to hold 250 detainees. There are nearly 4,000 detainees in the Donna facility right now. It is over 1,500% greater than capacity. You want to talk about a COVID risk? It is the crisis and disaster that is the Biden border policy and the border crisis. But yet, the Biden administration maintains that having even a single reporter is too much of a COVID risk. By the way, doesn't matter if that reporter has had COVID, doesn't matter if that reporter tested COVID that day, doesn't matter if that reporter has been vaccinated. The Biden administration says it is a COVID risk for any member of the media to see the disaster that is unfolding. That's an outrage. It's unacceptable. And I will say any media outlet that is okay with the Biden administration muzzling the press and hiding the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding, any media outlet that is not calling the president out on this right now is facilitating the media being blindfolded and gagged. That's not right for this country.
Now, I do want to go back and remind you the biggest development yesterday is Joe Biden announcing his new border czar. Cut number one.
The surge we're dealing with now started with the last administration, but it's our responsibility to deal with it humanely and to stop what's happening. And so this increase has been consequential, but the vice president's agreed, among the multiple other things that have happened in the meeting, and I appreciate it, agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with those nations to accept the returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their borders. We're already talking with Mexico about that. She's already done that. We're going to be dealing with a full team now that we have to be able to deal with the problem here at home, but also to deal with it now in terms of in country. And I can think of nobody who's better qualified to do this than this is a woman who ran the second largest Attorney General's office in America after the United States Attorney General in the state of California, and has done a great deal upholding human rights, but also fighting organized crime in the process. So it's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort, because I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that where the president is? When she speaks for me, doesn't have to check with me, she knows what she's doing, and I hope we can move this along. So, Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job, and you're smiling, but there's no one better capable of trying to organize this.
Yeah, sure. They got all the authority, or all of the responsibility, and none of the authority. Doug Ducey, the governor of Arizona, was quick to respond to the naming of Kamala Harris as border czar. Cut number 9.
Well, I have been informed that Vice President Kamala Harris has been put in charge of border security. She's about the worst possible choice that one could make. In no point in her career has she given any indication that she considers the border a problem or a serious threat. If President Biden's intent was to show that he's taking this issue seriously, he's really done the exact opposite here. He's completely trivialized this issue by putting someone in charge who flat out just doesn't care.
That's, did you hear the start of how Doug Ducey, what did you really think, Doug? Can we replay cut number 9, the Arizona governor?
Well, I have been informed that Vice President Kamala Harris has been put in charge of border security. She's about the worst possible choice that one could make.
I did I hear that clearly? What did you think, Doug Ducey, cut number 9?
She's about the worst possible choice that one
worst possible choice. You know, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, one of the most effective governors in the United States. I love the fact that he does not mince words, no diplomatic niceties. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's not going to be competent, but Joe Biden just gave her the keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer by sticking her with the border disaster so he can blame her. Also want to catch Mitch McConnell yesterday on Fox with Dana Perino talking about the gun challenge in America. Cut number 8.
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously these acts of violence are horrendous. We've seen them happen periodically in our history. It reminds us that the real challenge here is mental illness, and identifying people who are likely to do this kind of thing in advance is very, very difficult. With regard to the gun legislation over in the House, I don't think it would address this issue. But if the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Schumer, wants to bring it up, we'll be happy to debate it. But I think the focus ought to be on identifying people in advance who have the capacity and the interest in carrying out these atrocious attacks.
Kamala Harris on CBS this morning talked about guns, cut number 4.
And I believe that it is possible, it has to be possible, that people agree that these slaughters have to stop. And this is, again, reject the false choice and stop pushing it for sure. Stop pushing the false choice that this means everybody's trying to come after your guns. That is not what we're talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to focus that to assert that people are asserting that is itself a lie. The only person coming after your guns is Beto O'Rourke. Joe Biden said he was going to be the gun czar, and we have never seen Beto O'Rourke. Beto is sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring, which tells you, really, he's just waiting there, waiting for someone to give him a call, and Beto is not getting a call. Unbelievable. He was going to be in charge of gun policy, but he's the only guy who wants to come get your guns. But Democrats aren't serious. Let's not pretend that. I am serious about relieffactor.com. Here is the bag if you are watching on YouTube. I hope you will take a good close look at it. The North Carolina blue and the bright green that borders it. More importantly, the best designed package is the best designed packet. It's easy for people who might have arthritis or pain in their fingers to open. It's easy for anyone to open. Far more importantly, it works. These 4 pills that you take every day, Icarian, curcumin, and resveratrol omega, they support the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that plague you by doing the ordinary things of life, driving, walking, getting the peanut butter down. Whatever you do, give it a try. $19.95. I'm coming right back, America. Josh Rogan's brand new book is Chaos Under Heaven. We talk about it next on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I mean, we know that the Media Research Center did polling and found out among people who voted for Joe Biden, something like 30% didn't know the Hunter Biden story. And those that heard about the Hunter Biden story said up to 17% of them would not have voted for Joe Biden if they had known. This, we know for sure. This isn't any kind of conspiracy theory. We know that journalists interfered with this election in a way that journalists have never interfered with an election in the United States before, by suppressing very pertinent information. And for your listeners and your viewers, what is that pertinent information? And, it's almost like a joke, actually, Eric. And I think this film, actually, funny enough, will be funny and awfully sad and tragic and has a terrible punch in it. But here's some of the details. Here's a guy with a drug problem. And, we're Irish. We exported alcoholism around the world. We're quite sympathetic to people with addiction issues. But here is a guy with a very serious addiction issue. He goes to the Navy, he gets a special dispensation to go to the Navy as an older guy. First day he's there, he's thrown out because he got cocaine in his system. And his story, his excuse for that, is so ludicrous, it's worth telling. He says that he stopped off at a bar because he wanted a glass of water. He decided he needed a cigarette, went outside, didn't have a cigarette, and just randomly, because you know how this is, 2 South African guys offered him a cigarette laced with cocaine. Because you probably know, you live in New York, you see, Eric, you'd know how much these cocaine dealers are just handing out that cocaine for free to everyone.
Yeah, they hand it out for free. That's how I got addicted.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
I just get tired of people blaming racism for any time there's statistical differences along race and ethnicity. And you brought up the case in point about the NBA and NFL. We as Black people were overly represented in these areas, and yet we never hear boo that that's racist. But everywhere else, we scream racism, and I just wish that we would just go a little bit deeper in the analysis whenever we see these things. What is it in the culture? Is it in the way that we're bringing up our children in society that's promoting people to go into certain areas and occupations like that? That I feel would be much more useful and helpful rather than just saying, "Oh, racial inequity or racism." I'm saying this as a Black woman. I attended Ivy League schools, and I always felt in the back of my mind, "Are you judging me because you think I'm here and I didn't deserve it?" Whenever we do that and we eliminate merit-based systems, it always makes those of us who are trying to work hard feel like people are judging us as if we didn't work hard to get here.
Well, Bonnie,
thank you, Larry.
Bonnie, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. I went to an Ivy League school, too. My girlfriend was a dancer. She tried out to be a cheerleader, and she did